Hello, everybody. In this video, we're going to be looking at the primary theoretical interpretation that applies to socialization. Now, in your textbook and other course readings, you will see that there are entries from and studies from Jean Piaget, from George Herbert Mead, and from Sigmund Freud. And what we're going to be focusing on are the theoretical interpretations from George Herbert Mead and what Mead called the social self, because it wraps up much of Freud and Piaget's contributions and describes the socialization process in a way that is comprehensive and easy to understand. Now, George Herbert Mead theorizes that within all of us, there are two components. These two components are the I, capital I, and the me, M-E. So the I part of us is the part that we are born with. This is the spontaneous, raw, selfish component in all of us that we all contain. The me part of us is the part that has been shaped and molded by society. And when you interact with people, you are almost always interacting with that me part of them, that part that has been shaped and molded by society. When we look at the I part, again, the capital I part, again, this is the one that is selfish, raw, unreflective, spontaneous, that we are born with, but we carry it with us throughout our whole life. And in this case, when you hear selfish, don't necessarily think something negative. Normally, we associate negativity with selfishness, and for good reason. But in this case, it doesn't necessarily mean bad. Think of a baby, an infant, right? A baby that's 9, 10 months old. And you are on an airplane with this baby. And this baby is hungry or uncomfortable. What is the baby going to do? It's going to cry, it's going to fuss, it's going to spit and throw things and make just the biggest ruckus. Doesn't matter to the baby that there's other people around who are trying to sleep. Doesn't matter to the baby that there are other people around trying to read and would appreciate a lot of quiet. Right? The baby is entirely selfish. Now, that doesn't make the baby bad. And this is why I'm saying don't associate negativity with selfishness here. Don't necessarily associate it. It just means that the baby is focused solely on its own wants and its own desires. Now, according to Mead, you and I are not babies anymore, but that part of us is still there. We have just learned to suppress that through the expression of our me, that M-E part of us. Okay? So the core concept behind George Herbert Mead's social self is these two parts, the I and the me, and the gradual learning to build that me up. Ultimately, again, that me is the part of any person that you will normally interact with. Even those closest to you, even your most trusted friends or members of your family, you are interacting with their me in almost all cases. So how does this me develop? Well, it goes through a number of stages of what Mead calls taking the role of the other. And these stages of building and progressing and developing this me part of us is about increasingly taking on the role of other people to ultimately, at the very end, when the me is fully developed, to take on the role of what is called the generalized other. And I'll explain to you what this means. So think about these three stages here: imitation, play, and games, and conceptualize these as a person getting older, starting from birth and getting older. Okay? In the very first stage, imitation, this is where you'd find a very, very young child, or that baby on the plane that I was just using as an example. If you've ever interacted with a person of that age, you would find that this person likes to copy or imitate the things that it sees. So if you put your hand out, the baby will often put its hand out to meet it. If you put your hand on your face, the baby will also put its hand on its face. It doesn't really know what it's doing, this baby. It doesn't know what this means, if anything, or what this means, if anything. It's just seeing that you are doing it, so it's copying you. What's going on is a very basic, very fundamental understanding occurring within that baby's mind. That there are things other than it who can take action different than it. Something akin to, oh, that person there is holding out their arm. I have an arm. Can I hold out my arm like that? Oh, look, I can hold out my arm like that. I didn't know I could do that. That person is touching their face. I have a face, I think. Can I touch it? Look, I can touch my face. I never thought about that before. Okay? So it's a very basic thing that's occurring here, but a really important one, right? That I am not the center of the universe, that there are things other than me who might do things that I haven't thought of, or who might do things I have thought of, but differently. Okay? This is the imitation stage. Now, as that baby gets older, they enter the play stage. And it's at this stage that they start taking the role of the other. Again, this fundamental concept to the Mead's development of self. It's at this stage, in the play stage, where the child is able to take on the role of a single person in a single situation. So it's at this stage that you'll see kids playing games like house, playing games like school, playing games like doctor, like cops and robbers, or whatever else, right? They are pretending to be a different person. And while they are pretending to be a different person, they act as if they think that person would act in that situation. So the child is very easily able to play and imitate in school. So the child is going to pretend to be the teacher. So what does the child say? Okay, all the kids, let's sit down in a circle and let's get ready to read a book. Let's get into a circle, let's clean up our desks, let's do things like this, right? Because they can imagine and imitate and take the role of the other in that single situation of the classroom. They're able to conceptualize what the teacher would say or do in the classroom. What they cannot do at this point is conceptualize what that teacher might say or do at the grocery store or at home. Okay? And it's through this that they start behaving like they think this person would behave. So if they're playing house and they're going to pretend to be dad, they might say, okay, little brother or sister, time to clean up your room. That kid themselves does not care that little brother or sister has their room clean. But they think that that's something that dad would care about. So while they're pretending to be dad, that's what they say. Or vice versa with mom. Okay? This is taking the role of a single other person in a single situation at this play stage. That child then gets older and enters the games stage. And it's at this point where the child is able to take the role of multiple other people, but again, in a single situation. So think about a young person who is on a baseball team. It's important that they have gone through the development of self into the games stage in order to effectively play the game of baseball. Because as they are up to bat, they have to conceptualize what is that pitcher going to do. And then if I take an action and I swing at this ball and I hit it, what are the people in the outfield going to do? What would I do if I were in their place? So they are at one time thinking about not just the pitcher, but all of the opposite team and what actions they might take if they were in their role. This is taking on the role of multiple other people in a single situation in the game's stage. Ultimately, on this next slide, I'm going to show you the entire process. Ultimately, the goal of the development of the me in a person, this social self, is to get to the point where they are able to recognize what is called the generalized other. This is the end stage of the development of social self, according to Mead. When a person has come to the point where they are recognizing the generalized other, they are able to take the role of multiple other people in multiple situations. So this is taking the role of no one in particular, but simultaneously everyone at the same time. I know that that can sound confusing, and a different way to think about this is recognizing what society itself, all of the people in society, what they might think or do in any given situation. So if you have taken the role and recognized the generalized other, and you are out in public and your butt itches really, really bad, knowing that there are so many people around and how they might act or behave, you might find a discreet way to scratch your butt. You might rub up against something. You will probably not reach your hand down the back of your pants and give a vigorous scratching to your butt, because you recognize that generally this generalized other might frown on that kind of behavior. So you don't do that. Okay? And this could apply to many, many situations, not just the butt scratching. So inside of each of us, there is this I part, this selfish, desirable, unreflective, spontaneous, needy part of us. And then there is this me part, the part that has gone through all these different stages, the part that has been socialized to understand what is socially acceptable, what broader society might do, think, or act in any particular situation. And that me part of us is the one that normally guides our behavior. For example, let's say I have been wanting for a long, long time to replace my very old, very slow, very falling apart computer. And I finally saved up enough money to buy this new computer. So I drive myself 2 or 3 hours to the store that sells the computer. And as I arrive, I grab the computer off the shelf and I go to take it to the cash register, and then I realize, I've forgotten my wallet. That means I'm going to have to drive 3 hours home, get my wallet, drive 3 hours back, and then get the computer. That's horrible. What does the I part of us tell me to do? That spontaneous, selfish, raw, needy part of me. Well, my I tells me to take the computer, steal the computer. This is the thing that you want. Here it is. Take it. That will make you happy. This is the thing that you've been waiting for. So steal it. If you don't have the money, just steal it. That will give you pleasure. Okay? The me part of me says, absolutely do not steal that computer. Because the me part of me recognizes what society would think about that. If I take the role of the generalized other, right? Any random person out in society or society as a whole. What would society as a whole think about me arriving at the computer store, not having enough money to pay for the computer, and just stealing it anyways. Well, they would say that's not an okay thing to do, and that I should be punished for doing something like that. So I do not steal the computer. I do not take it. I probably drive home and then get frustrated and wait till the next day and then go back. Okay? I have developed the recognition of the generalized other. Now, are there people who would steal that computer? Yes. Yes. They are acting on their I. And this shows us something important. They may have not reached the stage of recognizing the generalized other. What Mead explained is that not all people will get to this point. Not all fully grown adults will get to the point of recognizing the generalized other, and instead be at some stage below this. One of the ways he said that a person best develops this is through education, but especially higher education. So all of you guys watching this video right now are either have come to this point already or are doing the exact thing that Mead said was the best thing to do in order to reach this. Doesn't have to come from higher education, but he said it was a good way to do it. Okay? So this conflict that occurs within us, sometimes it's really fast, right? Like there's maybe a flashing thought through your mind about, man, nope, not going to steal it. Right? Or maybe it's not even that long. But there is a part of you, and there's a part of everyone, that has this selfish, needy part, this I part of us, who wants our desires and needs met. Damn the consequences. Right? But then there's that me part of us that says, well, hey, maybe I shouldn't. So you can also think about this as the I part of us being filtered through the me part of us. Is this thing okay to do? Me says no, then I don't do it. Is this thing okay to do? Me says yes. Oh, okay, I guess I'll do it. Okay? So again, this video is meant to explain George Herbert Mead's theory of the social self. Core concepts here. The I, capital I, that selfish, raw, spontaneous part of us that we are born with. And then the me, this part that we develop over time, the part that has been shaped and molded by society. The development of this me happens throughout the stages: imitation, play, and games. The goal is to ultimately reach the end stage, which is the recognition of the generalized other. And what that means is being able to understand and determine what society at large would think about our behavior and the way that we think and the way that we act, what any random person might do in our place, and what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And then that guides the way that we carry ourselves and make decisions. If you have any questions or comments, I'd appreciate if you left them in the feedback below, and I'll see you in the next video.